Joshlin Smith's mother, Kelly Smith, and her co-accused, Jacquen Appollis and Steveno van Rhyn, have been handed life sentences for human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping. The South African Council of Churches says Joshlin's disappearance reflects a deep violation of trust in the parent-child relationship. And for more on this, we are now joined by the Council's General Secretary, Reverend Mzwandile Molo. He joins us now via our video link. Reverend, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Let's start off here. As the South African Council of Churches, what is your reaction when it comes to the sentencing proceedings in which we saw this week being handed down to the 3 perpetrators who have been convicted of human trafficking?
Good evening, Mbali, and good evening to your viewers. The South African Council of Churches received this news with a deep sense of sadness, though there's relief that at least the justice system has played its role, and the people who have been alleged to have been involved in such a sad and a deeply troubling reality of a child who has now been proven in a court of law to have been betrayed by their mother and those who are around, all of them, old people, people who are supposed, both in our faith but also in our traditions, are supposed to be the center of their protection of that child. We received the news of these sentences with a deep sense of sadness, because it should not be that we are at this place, but also relieved that the justice system has played its part.
And Reverend, you touched on something very important, talking about the betrayal of trust, particularly from the perspective of the child. What does it talk to when it comes to a trust here being lost, particularly by somebody who is ultimately responsible for taking care of their child?
Mbali, the truth is that as children, we depend on those who are older than us as places and sources of our own protection. In the faith that we are part of, the Christian faith, children are centered by Christ himself to be needing of our attention, to be needing of our sense of love and giving and protection. When we as a society live in a moment where trust is so absent in the relationships that we have with one another, part of your leading stories is the tragic story of Ulurato, who developing some sense of relationship and trust with somebody, yet it became the basis of her death. And therefore we're living as a society asking ourselves, what is happening to our soul as a society where trust can be so abused and people trusting others can lead into either death, as Lurato has experienced, but also as children, to a place where a child who would have celebrated Mbali her birthday, if she was, as the records say, she was abducted in February 2024, it's a year later. So that child would have had to celebrate a birthday. And when you celebrate a birthday, you celebrate the one who gives birth to you. Yet in this instance, the one who gives birth to her and those around her seems to be, as the court has found, to be the basis of her losing her freedom. And more tragically, Mbali, even right now, our heart bleeds out to Joshlin, and praying that there's a way of protecting her, there's a way of getting her out of wherever she is, so that her nightmare, which is more than a year now, can be stopped, and she can play like any other child, and dream like any other child, laugh like any other child, cry for normal things children cry for, to cry for a sweet, to cry for chips, to cry for those little things that you can cry for, rather than crying for the deep yearning of freedom when you as a child are held by those who keep you as a captive.
Reverend, what does this say about the erosion of safety in our communities, particularly, the safety of children?
This is the greatest gift any society can give to its children, is the fact that they can live lives of safety. They can live lives where as children, they can play around, they can be cared for, they can laugh like children. And actually, for children, when they're surrounded by older people, for children not to see older people as predators, but see older people as people who are there to protect them, to give them the comfort of safety. When we live in a society where in the family structure, And by the way, for Joshlin's situation, for those children who are abused, sometimes this is also their reality, that in the family structure where they're supposed to be safe, it becomes exactly the same place where they receive violation. And we as a society must begin to ask ourselves the question, what are we doing to repair the damage of the previous years around the family structure, of how our family system have disintegrated into spaces where children can grow in unsafe spaces whilst they are surrounded by those who love them, by those who gave birth to them, by those who breastfed them, by those who kept them alive in many ways before. Yet those same people now, at least in this case of Joshlin, has become the people who are responsible for her disappearance, her loss of liberty, her loss of freedom, in many sense, her loss of innocence.
Reverend, what needs to change morally in our society for us to never witness this again? And I say this, I mean, there is another case in Gauteng where a mother also made an appearance in court over the suspicion that she's also sold off a little child, a 2-year-old, to a sangoma.
Mbali, we have to, as a society, and the SACC says this to ourselves, and when we reflected on the nature of the family life and the family fabric that has disintegrated for decades, we have said that we need to find a way to ask ourselves, what are the things that we can do together to rebuild the notion of family? What is it that we can do together to say to ourselves, what is the role of a mother? What's the role of a father? What is the role of those who live together in these spaces? The church has a very serious role to contribute. And we as the SACC call on our own member churches to re-emphasize the need to build family structures and family systems. Secondly, we need to make sure that that old notion in Bali, where I grew up, I knew that the mother next door is my mother. I knew that the mother across the street is my mother, and therefore in their presence I'm safe. When they are around and they're taking care of their children, I'm included in that space. When I knew that I went next door and they were having their supper, they're going to share that piece of bread, that meal with me, because I'm seen as this child of this village, as the child of this street, as the child of this community. We need to go back and deal with those things. And secondly, Mbali, we need to deal with the reality that we're a wounded society. We have lost our moral center as a society, and we need to find a way to heal our wounds and recenter to ourselves a sense of sanctity of life, a sense of respect, what it means to be alive, a sense of looking at a child as a precious gift from God that we must take care of, and then looking at a child as a potential of a human being that we need to shape and help contribute so that they become the best that they can be as God intended them to be.
All right, Reverend, thank you so much for your time. That's Reverend Mzwandile Molo. He is from the South African Council of Churches. He's the General Secretary, just giving us his overview when it comes to that case involving Joshlin Smith and the disappearance of the then 6-year-old girl.